Are you thinking about getting a condo here in the state of Florida? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about condos, the good, the bad, the different types. Yep, that's right. It's not just regular condos here in Florida. There are several different types and different concepts and layouts, and there's so much to it, and a lot of good things and bad things over the last years, from press to negative things. And we're going to cover every single thing you need to know about condos in this video in Florida. I don't care if you're looking to rent or purchase. This is all information you need to know, because if you stay to the end, you're going to know everything you need to know, and you're probably going to hear some red flags that will make you run in the opposite direction. So, condos, what are they? So, obviously, this is a general statement. I think most of you have already looking up condos. You already know what they are. But I think after hearing about like the Surfside condo collapse in Miami, that was last year, 2 years ago, it was devastating, right? Like to see a condo, an HOA that just blatantly like disregarded the repair that a building needed, just to have it collapse is absolutely devastating. And it's sad, and unfortunately, I'll be honest, that's why I don't like HOAs. It's just, look, I like having as much governance on myself, personal responsibility, and being in charge of my own home and realizing the dangers that are associated with it. So if I did ignore something, that's my fault. But living in a building, you assume that those governing bodies are taking care of you. But a condo is obviously a complex. Here in Florida, normally it's going to be in a several, tiered building, right? So it's going to be a unit. It's going to be like 1 to 3 bedrooms. Sometimes it could be a penthouse, right? It really depends. More often than not, you're looking 1 to 3 bedrooms, right? I think the average person looking for a 1 to 3 bedroom. It's a building, it's a condo. Sometimes you get amenities with it. Sometimes you're just paying an HOA fee that covers maybe water or trash and sewer and things like that, and you're just residing in the complex. Maybe you're renting. That's a whole different story, right? Like apartment buildings, different story. But think apartment buildings, but you own them. That's what a condo is, right? Especially in my terms, that's what a condo is. It's just that simplicity of it. The interesting thing about Florida is a lot of people, especially the clients that have reached out to me, is they get so concerned about the safety. Everyone sees the Surfside and they're like, I don't want a condo. I don't want a condo. And some people, they don't think they even know about it, which is insane, but they don't know about it. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? The thing about Florida is it's like most other states, right? Condos are run by associations, and usually it's a governing group of people that live there. Sometimes not, right? Sometimes HOAs don't even require the board members to be living in the condo units. They could be just renting out the units, right? They have to own them, but that doesn't mean they have to be physically living there, which is insane. And there's a lot that comes into just getting a condo complex. It's not just as simple as, hey, let's go find a unit, let's get into it, right? There's a lot that comes down to that. And, the first thing I always talk to clients is like, well, what type are you looking for? And they're like, what do you mean, what type of condo? I'm like, well, there's a lot of different types. Like, depending on what you're trying to do with it, we can find options. Now, majority, right, you're going to be just looking for a condo complex that is loan approved. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. But, you have normal condos, right? You have condos where you don't have a garage and it's just a unit, 1 to 3 bedrooms. You have condos that are more like townhomes where you have a garage included, right? Heck, I lived in condos where, the laundry is on the bottom and I have to walk to the top, right? There's a lot of different types. Some condos don't even have laundry in them, right? And depending where you're coming from, you know what I'm talking about. Some states have that way more commonly, especially like in California. This is a huge thing, especially in the cities. It's nuts, right? But some condos, you can actually Airbnb them. Like, it's in the bylaws that you can Airbnb them. So a lot of clients I've had in the last couple of years, like they'll be in a situation where, especially in Orlando, a lot of conferences come to the conference center here, right? And a lot of people, they come here so much, and especially if you're a business owner, like your company doesn't necessarily pay for stuff. Even if your company does pay for stuff, like what do you to do? And there's some new construction condos going on right now. There's some new construction single family homes that allow this. Not many. Right, there's some older ones over the last 10, 20 years. There's a couple new construction options I know about that allow this option, but it means like, hey, if you're only staying here for a third out of the year, that other 2/3, you can Airbnb the property, you can rent it out, right? And they allow this in the bylaws. Now, the thing about, different types, like, it's not so much like, don't think building different types. It's kind of what the laws of those units allow you to do. Now, every condo you find is going to have an HOA, right? Like, you're in a common building, right? You're sharing walls, you're sharing a roof. You kind of need, like, while I don't like HOAs, you kind of need a governing body that takes a group amount of money every single month to be able to, termite, roofing problems, if hurricane comes through and damages the exterior of the property, right? There are some things. Some have bonus, right, where they'll cover the water and things like that. Personally, I don't care about that, because I think everyone should be paying for the water they use. But it gets complicated when you build a building to be able to incorporate that into it. So that's why a lot of units will just cover the water and sewer and things like that, because they have to. It's complicated to have something tied to every single unit in a building. But that's the first thing I always start with. Is like, what kind of type are you looking for? What are you looking for in a building? because like you're living there around, like, so like some of the resort ones, right? The condo resort. This is like very, new term to some people, but to others, they probably are fully aware of it. Especially if you're coming from outside the United States, you're probably like, oh yeah, condo resort. They have different names, but a condo resort is just a condo living with a resort style feeling. So like one of the new construction ones I've talked with clients recently about, like they have a full jacuzzi pool, affinity pool, all that stuff, right? Full workout room, everything. They have a full setup, right? And you have elevators in the building, so you're not walking upstairs. Like it's a condo resort, right? It's like you want the most you're living. And honestly, you're going to be living closer to the city with some of these complexes. Sometimes you're living like right across, like that one I'm talking about. Depending what side of the building you're on, you can see the fireworks from Animal Kingdom every single night. How cool is that? Right? Condo resorts are usually in an area where it's very touristy, where you're allowed to Airbnb or rent, or you can even live there. It's up to you, but it's all allowed in the bylaws. Now, you will probably spend a little bit more for these because the amenities are there, whether it's the HOA, but also the overall purchase price is going to be higher. And if you're not living there full time, that obviously has more complications that go into it. Now, the next thing that comes into issue is now you know what you're looking for. What loan are you using? Now, this is the issue I think has become a huge disaster in Florida with condos, because a lot of HOAs and condos, when I first started everything up here and started my real estate vision, which is actually a good kind of segue into that if you're someone who you're kind of looking into condos, you're trying to get to move to Orlando, Florida, or just Florida in general, like what me and my team does specifically is help people relocate here for a better life. That's what I looked for. It's what my whole team looked for. It was really meaningful to me to be able to help other people move to Florida, and I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Florida, and I love helping you create those plans. Like it's no cost at all, but if you ever want to create that plan, this number popping up below is how you get a hold of me. Call, text, email, or if you just want to go straight to the front, schedule that Zoom call down below. It's one-on-one. You get on my calendar, and I will be there to help work through that plan and kind of discuss all these things. So even this video right now talking about condos, it gets so complicated for everyone's specific situation, and it's impossible to give anything but general knowledge on these videos. I would love to go deeper, and I try and go deeper, especially moving forward on these videos, but really when it comes down to it, like everyone's situation is so different, from like people using Section 8 income to people who have a ton of money and they want a very specific type of home, like the full spectrum. So you can reach out to me and I'm happy to help you create that plan free of charge, obviously, to create the plan. But if you are looking to make that decision moving forward after that, I'm here to help you make that decision. Now, so obviously the next thing what I was going to before is like, what are you using to get the home? Are you all cash? Are you FHA, VA? Like there's a lot of different conventional, right? The thing is, like I mentioned, condo resorts. That's what a lot of people love to do. The problem is when the ownership is like up in the air and it's below a certain percentage, those FHA, VA loans can be out the window and you're gonna have to be conventional. Now, sometimes you can do some other options like a 10% down conventional and things like that. I do have connections that will let you do like a short-term loan, things like that. But that's a whole complicated situation, obviously. So in that situation, definitely reach out. But so FHA and VA loans is usually where a lot of issue comes up. So they have a lot of guidelines. Personally, I love them because it kind of gives you a layer of protection. It seems annoying when you're the one trying to get into condos and buy them with these loan products. I'm a veteran myself. I get it. I've owned condos. I've lived in them. I've flipped them. I've renovated them while I was living there. Like I've done everything with condos. And really when it comes down to is, if the HOA is mismanaged, meaning they're in debt, hey, they're probably losing their certification. I've even had condos where, FHA and VA, you have to renew every so often, or not VA, I'm sorry, FHA, you have to renew every so often, and the HOA just doesn't renew it. And then you're like, okay, well, you're not FHA approved anymore, and like, what the heck? Now, I will say, like, when it comes to condos not being FHA or VA approved, as long as the HOA is in good standing and they meet all the criteria for these loans, I have had success many times over, like putting in the work and getting these qualified with my lender partners. Specifically one partner as well who knows what they're doing. But like it's not impossible. So even if you're looking at a condo and it's not approved for that type of loan that you're trying to do, I promise you, as long as the HOA is in good standing and they have a good ownership amount in the building, things that you're going to want anyways if you're living there, if I'm being honest with you. And as long as it meets that criteria, there should be no issue getting the recertification. It might take a couple weeks to a month to get it done under what in your previous experience. And that's something that I do every single day, right? It's like a specialty. It's like, I get it. And it's so frustrating, especially if you can't afford a home and you're looking for something cheaper or whatever the reason is. Like it's annoying when you find that perfect place and the HOA just didn't renew it. Or something happened and they qualify now and they just like, we didn't recertify. Like how annoying is that, right? And you don't want to be caught in that situation because it's annoying as it is. But that's the biggest issue in Florida that you're going to find rampant is you're going to find a lot of HOAs that are in debt, mismanagement, maintenance hasn't been done in years. Like there's a lot that goes into it. And even though you're looking at a specific unit when you go to buy, you got to look at everything. And mind you, when you go into the escrow process at the end, when you're doing all your due diligence, like you're going to get the opportunity to look at the HOA docs, review them. And that's why people like me are here to kind of help you through that process, because it can be like, oh my God, like it's even a day, like HOAs just frustrate me, and they're just so archaic, and they got like free reign sometimes. So you have to make sure that you're diving into it. You're looking at everything, looking for red flags, and it's okay if you don't know what you're doing. That's why you have people like me here to help you through that process, because it can be a little daunting. Okay. But condos overall are just not too complicated. But obviously when you go to purchase one, you have to think about these things, because not only you're trying to figure out the condo you'd be happy with, you got to make sure, can I even use my loan to get into it? And if I can get into it, doesn't make sense. Now, a lot of people I also talk to, the next step after that is, hey, Cameron, like I understand I want to buy a condo to save some money, but I eventually want a house down the road. Like, does it make sense to buy now? Should I just rent? What should I do? Look, a lot of people give net condos a negative rap, right? Because they're in a situation where they're like, oh, like, they don't rent for as well, or they, when markets go down, they lose value more than single family homes. All true, most cases. The thing I will tell you is if you're looking to be somewhere for like 3 to 5 years, or hey, maybe less than that, like you can always move out and rent your unit out. Like I'm not saying condos are bad investments. You just have to make sure that whatever your plan is in the future, the HOA will allow it. And even after that, what are the next steps after that? And usually that comes down to, hey, like, even if the market goes down, you got to factor that and things like that. But condos necessarily aren't bad investments. I mean, I've lived in them. I've renovated them completely and still turned a profit, even though the market was before the craziness of COVID. Right? So it's kind of just figuring out, what's your overall plan the next 10 years? Where is that going? Does this fit into the plan? And ultimately, like if you really love living in the city, like condos can be a great thing. I mean, hey, let's see if like you don't have kids yet. Like now I lived in condos with kids. It was a disaster. Like, my neighbors hated me. I got 2 young boys. Like good luck. Like even though like I try and do my best to keep them in line, like they're kids and they're going to go crazy. Right? And some condos are just older and you can hear everything. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're in a situation to where like you're okay with a condo living, because it is just like living in an apartment. Like you just own it, right? And you really have to be aware of that. And that's not to say that you can't run for the board. I mean, so many times, HOAs come up, and anytime the same people keep running it over and over and over because no one challenges them. And if you really get into your unit, your complex, and you want to stand up and you want to be like, hey, I think I want to run for president or whatever it is, hey, get your name around, meet your neighbors. Like there's nothing saying that you can't get on the board and be more involved. You know many times I see clients, and even when I was involved, you get into an HOA and people just don't want to get involved. And I think that's really sad, especially because people are like, oh, the HOA is doing this, it's doing that. I'm like, well, are you standing up and trying to change it and kind of get involved? Because a lot of times these HOAs like don't have great involvement from the members. And if you're the one person who's willing to get involved, you kind of can put your foot in there and get things to be moving, hopefully in a better direction if you have that mindset. Obviously, most things have to be put to a vote and all this. You can't just go in and be a dictator. Come on, it's America. Let's try and avoid that. But, it is something you have to consider when it comes into a condo complex. Is like, okay, what are the current rules? And then how can I get involved to try and make sure, I stay happy with it? Because don't forget, HOAs will probably go up every single year and stuff like that. So you have to make sure you factor in that payment. Now, your insurance might be a little bit lower because HOA usually covers, that payment usually covers a huge insurance for the building. And then you're paying for an insurance in the interior of the unit. So you save a little bit of money, but that HOA cost does add up. Now, like I said before, another benefit is, actually that'll probably be a great thing kind of going to the advantages and disadvantages. We'll just cover everything right now. All right, what are the advantages of living in a condo? A lot of times it can be location, right? Like if you can't afford a full house, like you can be in a condo and be around a lot of amenities. You can be close to the Disney parks, right? In a condo resort or just a regular one, right? Like you're close to amenities. You can kind of get like things covered, right? Like you don't have to worry about using too much water because it's covered in the HOA payment. You might just have to worry about electric and things like that, or maybe gas if your building has it. You kind of get a little bit taken off your shoulders, right? You're only worrying about the inside of your home. As long as the HOA is managed properly, like you're like, all right, they got the exterior, right? And that's okay. If you don't want to be on the board, then you really could be a little bit hands off. It's like an intro to home ownership, right? You're just kind of worried about the intro of your unit, and that is a huge advantage because a lot of people, they don't want to deal with that stress, but they want to build the equity of owning something. Right? Having those options that comes with owning a piece of real estate. And, the flip side, another advantage is, we talk about location, all that. Mine just skips sometimes, guys. I have like a newborn who's 4.5 months old. Man, brain just starts skipping. some of the advantages, right? You need to be put in a position to where, like I said, that's really the biggest thing is location. Oh, and cost. There we go. That's the last one. Jeez. Cost. They're going to be a lot lower than a single family home. And even with that HOA payment, maybe you're in a situation where you're trying to save money. And if you're okay being in a condo, you can save a lot of money being in a condo, but still building equity, especially if you're trying to build a business, you're trying to get that promotion, you're trying to do whatever it is, like a little bit money in your pocket, especially in this crazy inflationary environment, can be a huge blessing. So it's something that those are the really benefits. But what are the disadvantages? Well, there can be a lot, and it depends on everyone's situation. The disadvantage is, sure, you don't really gain equity like you do with a single family home. You just don't, right? They're condos. Like when you look at when home prices even get close to what your condo was, people are going to go for the single family home generally. So that's one disadvantage. Another one could be, even if you look at, you're like, hey, I'm going to rent my condo out a couple years down the road instead of selling it. Well, guess what? HOA rules can change, and that can hurt you. Not only do they raise prices every year, sometimes more, they can do special assessments, right? Meaning, all of a sudden, hey, they're collecting money. That doesn't mean they have a bad budget. It just means, hey, hurricane came through, destroyed the building. Insurance covers this, but we don't have enough money. Boom, special assessment. They say, okay, it's going to cost $20,000 or $5,000, $10,000 to fix this. Now that means this year or next year or over a course of 1, 2, 3 years, all units have to pay this much towards that overall cost to repair it. Okay, special assessments. And that can hurt even selling the unit. Right? And usually when you go to sell the unit, you're probably going to have to pay off that special assessment, right? So that's a big negative, is that financial cost. It's a benefit, but at the same time, the wrong complex could become a negative. Look at the Surfside collapse, right? That was a waterfront complex, and the HOA knew that it wasn't updating those steel beams in the beams at the bottom of the complex. And people lost their lives because of that. Now, that's a dramatic case. It doesn't happen every single day, of course. But that is an example of like, hey, that's an HOA who just wasn't doing their job. And sometimes I think it goes back to personal responsibility. I mean, most people don't, obviously the HOA, those people are still at fault. And that's a whole nother anger I have towards people being fully accounted for what they did, especially if you knew what was wrong and you didn't fix it. Not okay with that. But that's why I always encourage people that there's nothing wrong with condos. You just got to do your due diligence before you get involved. And you have to make sure, like, hey, how long's it been since this inspection was done? And obviously, when you have a home inspector, you can ask, because they're usually pretty up to date on what's going on, as well as myself and my team. And you have to make sure you understand, like, hey, what do I need to look into when it comes to this? Like, look at the HOA docs. Like, hey, your roof hasn't been replaced in a long time. Like, what's going on with that? You can kind of call the HOA, pose some questions before you even finish buying the home or condo in this case. So, that's a big disadvantage, right? Is the upkeep of the building. Like, you're really putting faith into that HOA to really make sure that they're on top of things. Most of the time, it's not just people. They have a management company. But management companies are management companies. And that is another issue in itself, right? But, that's really the biggest disadvantage of it, is putting those faith in those situations and the financial things. And then the last disadvantage, if you're like me and you have kids, it can be hard. Like, it's like living in an apartment, right? Like, your neighbors could be terrible. I've been in condos where I feel like I was how I normally talk was disturbing the peace because it was so quiet. Like, people were having wine in the common room. And I'm like, what? I don't belong here, I don't think. Right? Even though I do like some wine. But, some complexes, like, you have kids running everywhere, right? Like, it's just how the condo is. It's chaos. It's loud. There's parties every Friday night. Like, there are many different levels of condos. If you're living in a condo resort, most of them are probably rented. So you're going to have different people living around you 24/7. And that can be a huge disadvantage as you're so close to people. Me, I've done it. I could do it, but having a family and kids, I could not. No way. That's why I moved to Orlando. I wanted a house. But, I look back at my single self in those days, like, yeah, I could easily live in a condo in the city and just have a really good time with it, right? So there's nothing against living in a condo, but that could be a disadvantage depending on your situation, right? Now, that's about the gist of everything you need to know about condos. But like I said, it can get complicated, and every situation is so dependent on your specific situation. So if you're looking to kind of get an idea of everything we talked about and kind of get that plan in place, this number popping up below is how you get a hold of me and the team. Call, text, email, or schedule the Zoom call down below. Whatever you want to do, here to help you when it comes to moving to Florida, making that plan. Because, like, if you make one wrong decision when it comes to either buying a condo or just the move in general to Florida, it's going to ruin your experience, right? It's going to ruin your time. You might even leave. And you know, Florida's a place, it's a sunny state for shady people, I love saying that. It's a great state, but also like any location, like, you're probably coming into it not knowing too much. And if you make the wrong decisions, I definitely made some bad decisions when I moved here. Like it just ruins everything, right? If you don't have the right plan, the right place you're moving to, it can just be a bad experience. So if you're looking to make that decision, I'm here to help you along that process. Hope you got value in this video. Hope it gave you some insight into the general ideas you need to think about when getting into a condo in Florida. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.